this video, we're actually gonna look at the historical cycles. So on this chart, it's showing between 1930 and 2015, and how many different kind of the recession and business cycle we experience. Obviously, you can link this chart with the roller coaster, and also obviously, we say, wow, our economy really on a very interesting roller coaster. Sometimes going really down, sometimes going really up, and you have to know. And actually, we can find a lot of terms we just learned: Great Depression, recession, peak and trough, and recovery. And so we will identify the most famous events through this time horizontal between 1930 and 2015. So first of all, on this chart, you can find a big dip. It's from 1930, about 1930, and going really down to 1933, and then instantly coming back. So what's happened during this period of time? So during this period of time, we actually call it a Great Depression. So as we just discussed the definition, so the Great Depression is far more severe than the recession. So the first 1930 and the 1933, the Great Depression was the most prolonged departure from our long-term growth path. So now surprise you, right? On this chart, you can see the growth rate is dramatically decreased. So the growth rate is almost negative 15%. It's really great decrease. So between 1929 and the 1933, the real GDP contract a total of the nearly 30%. Kind of scary when people live in that period of time. As I said, it's very, I can use one word to depress, is sad. So very sad. Everybody very sad. So economy rebounded again in 1933. So you can see right after 1933, and it's really bounced back. And continued to expand until 1937. So when it's reached the peak, 1937, but it was still below that of 1929. So still below 1929. So the Great Depression was not confined to the U.S. economy. Other countries suffered substantial losses of the output and employment over a period of many years. So the world, and there is a case on your textbook is about the World View Global Depression during the same period of time, 1933, 1929 to 1933. And so on that case, it actually offered the statistic on the decline in the industrial output for several nations. It also notes some countries suffer minimal effects, such as China. One of the reasons is because they have such a undeveloped economy during that period of time, so even they got hit. And plus, it's a very close economy, so they will not see that significant decrease. But most of the European countries got hit by this Great Depression as well. And so what happened is, if you remember the American history, is the reason it coming down in about 1937 and it started to bounce back is what happens in World War II. So the World War II greatly increased the demand for goods and the services, ending the Great Depression. So that's why there is a rumor when people talk about World War II, why we have World War II. Some people just say, oh, the people control the country will try to bounce the economy back. It's just coincidentally happening. I cannot really see people start World War II to try to save the economy. I don't think that's the right conclusion. But we do see how World War II helped the economy, how it helped the business cycle. Because the World War II happening, people need weapons, the people go into the war, many people died, and then the women joined the labor force, helped to grow the economy. So it seemed like some people said is people try to transfer the domestic confliction to the international confliction so that they can save the domestic economy. As I said, it just coincidentally happened. So nobody really say when people start World War II is just because of economic reason. I don't think that's the case. So nobody proved it. And after you're taking this class, please don't say it just coincidentally happened. So World War II do save the domestic economy in U.S., but we never can see it's because people want to save the domestic economy. They started World War II, so that would be the wrong causality relationship. So, and so the real GDP growth at unprecedented rates. So you can see how the World War II happened related to the growth of economy. So the growth of the economy. So virtually everyone was employed throughout the war, and Americans' productive capacity was trained to the limit. So as I said, although America didn't, the non-war happened on the U.S. land. U.S. supplied arms to different countries, definitely helped the growth of the domestic economy. However, what we see is after World War II, and you can see on this chart, and the U.S. economy resumed the pattern of the alternative growth and the contraction. Bam, instantly dropped. And so it kind of makes sense because people who are employed go to the war, and the lady was in the labor force, helped to produce in the product. Now the war ended, what they gonna do? So they come back, but we don't have enough job for everybody. So that's why the economy experienced a contraction or recession. So the most severe post-war recession occurring immediately after World War II, and the sudden cutback in the defense production caused GDP to decline sharply in 1945. So this recession was relatively brief, and the pent-up demand for the consumer goods and a surge in the investment spending helped restore full employment. So you can see, it kind of short, and so instantly coming back. So now that's what happening in this first period of time is kind of very challenging, but the next period we have to move on to the next decade. It's 1980. So during the 1980s and started the two recessions, the second lasting 16 months from July 1981. So you can see here, which is here, to November 1982. So despite the second recession started mid-year, the economy output increased in 1.9% in 1981, but by 1.9%. So economy's growth rate was slower than the growth in labor force, so employment rate rose. So the growth recession occurred when the economy expanded too slow, 0 to 2%. Recession occurred when real GDP actually contracts. So in November 1982, which we see here, the U.S. economy began an expansion that lasts over 7 years. So it's really working well. Over 7 years, it starts to grow. So the next what we are going to talk about is most of you might have experienced or might hear your parents talk about it. It's another Great Recession in 2008 and 2000. You can see the big drop here, 2008 and 2009. So many of you know why it happened because the financial market crashed, and mainly because of the housing crisis. And so during this period of time in 2008, and so when the housing price dropped and it affected so many financial institutes because the main reason is the financial industry market is less regulation, and the people loan the money to the people who have the really low credit history, and then they cannot pay the loan back. And then we have so many houses there in abandoned, and nobody can afford it. The people drove out of the houses, and nobody paid the money back. And so the bank, instead of having a lot of cash back, they actually own a lot of the houses, so they cannot sell it. So we have more supply of the houses on the market than the demand. So the housing price dropped down, and then also and the financial institute make the loan create the financial derivative on the house loans, since nobody can pay the house loan, and so those financial derivative gets less valuable, and then it affects broad of the people beyond the people who own in the house cannot pay it. So that's how the financial crisis starts, 2008 and 2009. And in 2008, the economy returned to falling GDP, another recession. So the Great Recession of 2008 to 2009 was the worst since 1981 to 1982. And so economic activity shrank by 3.8% in the last 3 months of the 2008, according to the government's gross domestic product report. So obviously, many people losing job because the economy is not working well. And so do you remember what happened, how the whole even now, right before 2017, we still can feel a little bit of pain from this Great Recession. So in order to save the market in 2009, so many government, the government actually bought a lot of share from the bank, try to pay their debt. So that's some government intervention helped, and so obviously the recent reducing the tax and also helped to boost the economy. So now we finally back to the good path. Economy start to recovery, but as we said, it's kind of overheated now. So the government start to impose the high interest rate, try to cool down the economy. So this is the historical cycle. You can see the economy is up and down, up and down. It's kind of normal, but when we see abnormal is when we are experiencing the Great Depression, Great Recession, and Great Depression, and that's the moment we really need to have a great government intervention to help to pull the economy back.